Hello everyone, welcome to another Fara carry guide. Today we're going to talk about the Ryujo. So, you've made it to tier 6. Congrats, because getting through tier 4 and 5 is very painful these days with the current removal of alt attacks. So you've made it to tier 6, here you are. How do you set up your ship? What is the best way to make use of it? What are the captain skills? What are the ship build setups? How do I use my planes? What's the opposition I'm going to come across? Sit down, come with me, and I'll explain how I would use it. Okay, so first things first, here we are with our carrier in-game. There's some interesting stats about the Ryujo. To start off with, in terms of hull and the health-wise, 40,000-ish health, it's nothing really that remarkable. It follows the same standard Japanese pattern where we are using fighter waves that have 4 by default, but with air supremacy they go up to 5. We get 2 torpedo bomber squadrons and 2 dive bomber squadrons. This is a big kind of jump up from the tier 5, the Zuiho, because we get the extra dive bomber, because it was 121, now it's 122. What is also important, that basically means that you can have multiple sources of fire and flooding, but this is the first ship that you actually get to use alt attack, which makes you far more lethal, and we'll show that at the end of this video, basically with a kind of a test or kind of training random battle, where we kind of show off what we do. Now, one thing to note about the Ryujo is that it only has 48 units. It's not like its bigger brother, the Hiryu or the Shikaku, that will operate off 72. The difference between 40 and 72 is basically a full plane wave. So you have 2 full waves of fighters, torpedo bombers, and dive bombers to work with. So you need to be very careful with how you micro your planes, whether you're going into targets to attack, escape, flying around AA bubbles. Is being mindful of what to attack and when to attack, and knowing that if you want to last a full 20 minutes of a random battle, or possibly a ranked battle, because the last season was tier 6, or then you need to do everything you can throughout the battle to conserve planes. That's basically what we're getting at. Secondary armament is nothing spectacular. On AA guns, the Ryujo is actually pretty good. Its long-range cannons, and now this is with certain captain skills here, can go reasonably well. It can get up to 6 kilometers, and it can be fairly high. And if you take manual fire control for secondary, sorry, not for secondary, but for AA armament, it's actually pretty good at defending itself, because until you get to tier 8, carrier sniping is totally a possibility. So you need to have the ability to defend yourself if your fighters aren't to hand. If your fighters have low on ammunition, they're low ending, they're taking off, or they're just nowhere near and you're being bombed, you need to have strong anti-air to defend yourself, and the Ryujo can do that. Unlike its opponent ship at the tier 6 bracket, the Independence does not have large caliber guns. It doesn't get the benefit of double damage from manual fire AA armament, so it's definitely a bonus to the Ryujo. In terms of maneuverability, the ship isn't super fast compared to the later Japanese models that are over 30 knots, 29.4. It's got reasonable rudder shift, it's got reasonably good kind of turning radius, and it's actually got pretty darn good concealment. Almost too good concealment. And what I mean by that is, in the 5-6 bracket, destroyers can be quite stealthy in the 5-6 kilometer range, and with your detectability range at 9.6, this is not with concealment module, and the captain does not have concealment expert. It is just with camo 9.6 kilometers, and this means that you have less time to react when a ship approaches you. When a ship sees you, like a destroyer flanking type of ship, you will be ship detected. You'll see that you're ship detected. You're like, ah, there must be something that's spotting me, and then you have you need to then redirect planes or whatnot and logically deduce where is the ship coming from, where could he be, spot him, either take care of him or have friends help out. And 9.6 is kind of on the not giving yourself a lot of time. I find that the 10 to 11 kilometer range is the sweet spot, which is currently what the Shikaku and the Hiryu have. But anyway, moving on, that's kind of by the way. In terms of ship setup, we have 2 important actual setups. So the ship comes stock 112, okay? We're not a fan of that. We like 2 torpedo bomber waves. It allows us to have multiple sources of flooding and also ability to cross drop. We have what I would consider the ranked / competitive setup, if there was a tier 6 competitive meta, which is 311. Now this does allow you to have 1 source of flooding and fire, so you can sort of bait a damage control party and milk out more damage, because you're not going to be killing anybody off right, but it's very difficult to hit destroyers. You've only got a single torpedo bomber wave, so most people in randoms and the worse off higher ranks in the last ranked season would be using 122. The damage output is great. The only downside here is you have a single fighter, and if you come across an enemy Ryujo that goes 3-1-1, you're in a lot of problems because you get completely locked out, which is why in the later parts of rank season, when you get down to the very low ranks, no one was running 1-2-2 because the 3-1-1 would lock it out. But 3-1-1 doesn't have an influence in the battle like the 1-2-2 does in terms of offensive, so you don't typically find that in random battles. And also the Independence balance setup is 1-1-1, which means he has one fighter, one torpedo, one dive bomber wave, and his fighter wave is stronger than yours, so you cannot afford to then engage him and then just simply lose, because there'll be 7 fighters versus 5 fighters, because the Independence obviously gets 7, and you're not going to have benefits here, so you need to be very smart with your fighter usage, but you did get a lot of offensive capability. So for me, in this particular example, I'm going to be taking 1-2-2. In terms of kind of upgrades, we're going to take the Air Group Mod 1, increases the damage of our guns on our planes. Then we're going to take the Air Groups Mod 2, that gives us 50% fighter ammunition, that means more strafes, and more health to our fighter planes. Our fighter is going to be doing a lot of work here. We're going to be doing it defensively or offensively, or scouting if we're really desperate, so having the extra health is very, very critical. And then the last 2 skills are anti-snipe kind of upgrades. One that reduces the chance of fire and flooding, and the other one reduces the time that you are on fire, because one of the ways that carriers snipe an enemy carrier is to bait out a damage control party, then follow up with the fire or flooding that then cripples and kills you off. In ammunition consumables, we take premium damage control party 2, just so we get a quicker damage control, and that's pretty much the ship setup. In terms of what you would upgrade first, I highly recommend that you upgrade the fighters first. Going from a tier 5 to the tier 6 fighter is a big increase in capability, largely in health rather than speed, but it's still a nice upgrade. The torpedo bombers by default are at tier 6, there's no problems there. So I would go with probably the fighters, then the ship hull. It depends if you have free experience or if you're focusing, and then follow the dive bombers, and then after that the ship hull itself. The ship hull itself, the only real benefit you get here is the anti-air guns and a little bit of health. So you can kind of do it in that order. In terms of captain skills, assuming one has a 19-point captain, which I currently don't on the Ryujo, the first skill we normally take is Aircraft Servicing Expert. This is the standard skill. We're looking to get plane health and servicing time. The 2-point skill I always take is Torpedo Acceleration. Destroyers are very fast, and if you're playing against very, very good players, and this is the reason why you take Torpedo Acceleration, you can cross drop and you can kill them. The torpedoes, when the destroyer is coming along, you chop from behind, the torpedoes are catching up, and then you come in from the side, and that will typically kill off the destroyers. You can argue that you don't want to take Torpedo Acceleration, and perhaps you want to take Adrenal Rush, or you want to take Expert Rear Gunner. Expert Rear Gunner means your plane's rear gunner does more damage when they're clicked on, but most people strafe, so Expert Rear Gunner isn't a very good skill these days. You can take Adrenaline Rush, which means when your ship takes damage, you gain an ability to quickly turn around servicing time if the plane's faster, but these are more reactive skills, where Torpedo Acceleration is a more proactive skill, allows you to be more offensive, go after better targets. So I prefer the skill, your mileage may vary. Now, in the 3-point skill, this is where it decides what do you want to use your captain for. Do you want to use it in a ranked / competitive setup, or are you concerned about carrier snipes against you? If so, then in ranked competitive or carrier sniping, you would take basic fire training, because it synergizes very well with the manual fire control for A armament. If, however, you're just playing randoms and you're not too worried about it, and you're not going to take it in a competitive or ranked, you can take torpedo armor expertise, because the torpedo bombers are your main force of damage, so you're kind of turning around as quickly as possible. Me, however, I feel that the Ryujo's plane capacity is too low, that I'm not turning around as quickly as possible. I want to be careful and skilled in what I'm doing, and also CV sniping is definitely a thing in EU, at least for myself when I play. I'm typically the guy who snipes, but I don't want to be killed off myself, so I take basic fire training, I skip the torpedo armor and expertise, and then the first 4-point skill I take is Air Supremacy. You've got to get that improved fighter, and then the improved dive bombers is helpful. In certain scenarios, you may be using the dive bombers to scout, so having the extra planes is very, very helpful, and of course there's more chance to do some damage and get some fires. The Other skills in the 4-point, you'll take manual fire control for AA armament. This synergizes very well with the large caliber AA gun that you have. It doubles the damage. Currently it's 5 km range, but as soon as this captain gets to 19 points, I would then take advanced fire training, and this pushes all of the anti-air further area, and that means that the long range AA aura, it becomes 6 km, and it does a good amount of damage. And this is kind of the self-defense. This build where you have the kind of the trifecta of AA and the basic plane skills, means that it's the same for the Hiryu and the Shikaku. And I forgot to mention that dogfighting as well. So the 11 kind of point setup is servicing, acceleration, basic fire training, air supremacy, dogfighting, then I take manual fire, then I take AFT in that order of leveling up the captain. And it means that your CV is able to defend itself against carrier snipes, against any planes that come near within 6 km, and you're still able to be effective with your planes, and you're not negating yourself in any way. In terms of signals that one might take, well, I prefer to increase my chance to flood and fire, because the Ryujo can't necessarily kill off enemy ships, because enemy ships in the 5 and the 6 bracket, and somewhat to the 7, are shorter. They're not as long as the 8, 9, 10s, which means you're not going to be hitting as many bombs, which means your ability to alpha strike isn't going to happen. And by alpha strike, I mean killing off the ship entirely in one go. So I like to increase the chance of flooding and fire. This will increase the flooding chance by 19% and the fire chance with the bombs by about 1%. Every little helps. I also take the AA signal just to boost up the ability of self-defense of the carrier, and then the last one I take the speed signal just so the carrier can escape or run if necessary where it needs to be. You can drop the speed signal, you can theoretically drop the Victor Lima as well if you want to take experience signals, if you want to take the Equal Speed Charlie London or the Zulu Hotel, just so you can get ship experience and commander experience. That's also a perfect viable way to do it, but the current setup I have is just if I was playing in sort of competitive environment, that type of thing. I don't want to take the reduced time to fire extinguishing, because I would rather take AA. I'd rather kill more planes before they get to me rather than reducing the time I'm on fire when I have it, but you can mix it around. You could reduce the speed and you could take the fire signal if you think it's going to be a very hostile meta with the carrier trying to snipe you, and that would synergize really well with the module on the ship that reduces the time that you're on fire, because the way you work in a sniping environment is you dive bomb once to burn fire, you try and trigger that damage control party, then you hit them with torpedo bombers in the second dive bomber, fire flooding, and then you basically kill off the ship because they'll bleed out. Right. That's the ship setup, that's the captain setup, that's what kind of attachments I have. Let's go into battle and we'll talk about what I want to do and how I would play. So, if we're coming across a fighter heavy ship, then we would use our dive bombers, we would drop the payload, and then we'd use the dive bombers to scout. So we have a double carrier game here, which means we have to be careful because the enemy Ryujo, we can actually hover over and see, I think he's the same. Yeah, so he's probably the same as us, which is 122. The independents, I'm not entirely sure. So the independents can be fighter heavy. So the fact is, if you are outnumbered by fighters, use your dive bombers in a scouting role, drop the payload, fly around, skirt around, and basically lead his fighters in a wild goose chase. Use your one fighter to protect your 2 torpedo bombers, and go after any target of opportunity that you see. Alternatively, if you do have air control, or if it's an equal fight, you can use your one fighter to escort your bombing wave, and you can just go after, again, any target of opportunity. Now, we only have 2 enemy battleships in this game, and there's a lot of cruisers, so we need to be mindful of defensive fires and that type of stuff. So, I'm just going to take off the fighter first, then the torpedo bombers, then the dive bombers. We'll see how this goes, and we might actually go after the MECV since there's so few in battleships. The Queen Elizabeth apparently does have good AA, depending if the captain specs for it. The Fuso is a good target. The Leander does not have a defensive fire. The Nurembergs can. The Oyoba can. I don't believe the MAO Bertin has defensive fire, or the Königsberg, although I may be wrong. I don't normally play in these low tiers. And then the destroyers are actually also totally viable targets for us to go after. We can see them going for a capture point, and if they're not protected by hostile fighters protecting the hostile destroyer, we can actually cross-drop them as well, and it can have a significant impact on the game because they're no longer able to capture points, and then larger ships with larger detection range have to go into the more exposed capture areas to grab them. So there's a lot of options, put it that way. So our independence is 111, which means he has a fighter. That's good. He's not strike. That is the enemy no, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's the enemy Ryujo. Farragut. Oh, excellent. Excellent. Farragut is going into our cap. We have support ships here. Let's watch how he turns. He's by the island, which is going to make this a little bit tricky here. We're going to watch his positioning. I am sacrificing the fighter to doing a lot of things at once. That torpedo bomber might not hit. Oh, he's trying to strafe. Nope, didn't get him, but someone else got him, that's fine. So we did suffer there. That's interesting. That's the Independence fighter, that's the Ryujo fighter. So both enemy fighters there, but we did get a destroyer kill, which has a significant impact. However, we are down to our last fire wave. We've already lost one wave, we only have one other wave. So we need to be really careful for the rest of the battle. Was it worth it to pick off one of the destroyers this early? I think so. I think it was worth it to kill him off. It means we get the A cap, everything's, you know, detectable, and because I know that on the enemy map the Mitsuki's over in Charlie, theoretically our Farragut could get Bravo. It does give us kind of control, but now it comes down to what are we doing against the enemy CV? Is he going to lock us out? Is he going to basically provide the spotting that the destroyer would have done that we killed off? So we'll see. But my fighter, now that I'm only down to one fighter, I need to be really careful with him. I'm going to wait till the dive bomber lands, and then I will basically take everything off. It's kind of plane management. That is the enemy Independence fighter. Sorry, torpedo bomber. That's the Independence fighter. That's the other Independence fighter. So he'll be tagged there. Leanders don't have defensive fire, but you know, you can just click on it. You don't want to be fighting under hostile AA. Not at this tier, anyway. So hopefully our fire plane, this guy should beat him because he has the lander right underneath him. And there's no other kind of AA auras that can kind of influence. I don't want to get engaged in a click war. What I would rather do is strafe, because from now on I want to be very, very, very careful with my fire plane. Because I've got to last another 16 minutes, and if I lose it, then I'm essentially a strike ship that has no ability to protect myself or to harass. So if I'm going to bomb something and I need to sacrifice the fire, it needs to be a really high priority target. Let's see if I can't maybe go over here and harass those torpedo bombers. We want to tell the team get that Nuremberg because he's causing AA. Fuso's coming into play. We might be able to get him because there's no enemy fire, so he'll be on cooldown. No. Thing is, it's actually worth chasing down the bombers because he only has 2 waves. He's smart. He's not letting me strafe it. But I think this is worth us. I lost a plane due to the numbers AA. That's very frustrating. Oh, don't want to do that. Go wait, go wait, go wait. Yeah, he just tried to strafe, so I'm just going to pull that back. Alright, Nuremberg's dead, that's great. I don't really want to go. I'm going to fly over where my friendly fighter is. I'm going to send 1 torpedo bomber, 1 dive bomber on the Fuso. I'm going to have the fighter loitering around. Now he is going to try and mess with us. Maybe with a direct on strafe, maybe just waiting. I'm not prepared to... Oh, yeah, he just turned around and did a... So we saw that coming. So we got a fire, and hopefully we'll get flooding. Nope. Okay, but we're going to watch our damage numbers. Is the fire put out? The fire has been put out. I can only assume he has used his damage control party. So we're going to wait an extra 5 seconds because it's only 15 seconds in the Japanese ships. We're going to fly back now, and by the time the bombs land, that will be the 15 seconds up. We'll have the fighter loitering around. If we can get a flooding here, maybe 2 fires, we'll probably kill him. Pull the fire back because he's not needed anymore. 2 fires. And a flooding. Excellent. So we got a good bit of damage. And now he, assuming he used his damage control party earlier, then he'll basically flood and burn out. There's no way for him to survive. Even with a healing, he'll die. And this is us milking as much damage as we possibly can. In terms of my ship positioning, I'm a little bit concerned about the ML13. The Bayern might come around and save us, but you know what? I'm going to start turning and moving away. I'm going to see if I can't move my fighter now across. See, the Fuso went down. Someone else got the kill credit, but we basically got all the damage in there. And we're going to try and see if we can't strafe hostile bombers and keep our fighter only on a sort of defensive gameplay. Oh, come on. Planes are slow, yo. He's just outside the strafe. Oh, don't want to fight that fire. Don't want to fight it, because I will lose. He's got a full wave there. Full wave of 7 or 6. And, yeah, so he doesn't have the air supremacy. He only has 6 planes there, but I'll still lose. So I'm just going to go straight back to my carrier. There's no point trying to fight it. I would just, you know, waste of time. Lure him over friendly AA. Don't necessarily lure over a friendly destroyer, because he might not like you. In terms of how's the game progressing, well, we probably want to kill the Emil so he doesn't chase us down. We're roughly even on terms of ships left. So I'm going to group up the torpedo bombers, and then we're going to not wait for the dive bombers. We're just going to go straight after them. Here we go. Bayern should be able to kill him just fine, but we're going to guarantee it. That way we don't have to run too quickly. Oh, yeah, you know what? I'm going to land the fire, get some fresh ammunition now that I'm already back there. See if he's trying to turn in. I'm anticipating the turn and should connect. 1 torp should be enough, so I'm going to hold back the other one. Yeah, it looks like it'll get it. Even tier 5s though can kill your planes. There we go. So I want to get this fire out as quickly as possible. Maybe try and give some protection to the Königsberg or work with my friendly carriers fighter. The Queen Elizabeth is probably what I'll go for next. The issue here is that the Queen Elizabeth has pretty good AA, and I don't want to attack just with only, and also I'm going to get closer to the front line as well because we're quite far back. Although we do have the cap advantage here, so we can be patient. I want to go for the Queen Elizabeth. He's already been pretty beat up. I think I will try use the wounded torpedo bomber group. See if we can't get fire flooding here, but we need to pay attention. Is there a hostile fighter flying around? And if so, we might fall back. But I want to help this Königsberg out, and I also want to basically kill off their last threat of the game. And we see that their destroyer's dead. Alright, and we'll get the second torpedo bomber and the dive bomber ready to follow up in case he damage control parties. Don't see any fighter, which is great. Pull these guys out of the A at the moment. So 2 fires, no flooding, that's fair enough. Now, is he going to damage control that? We'll just be patient. It doesn't look like he is, so if he wants to burn, that's fine. I'll just send this next dive bomber wave, and then wait for if his fire runs out, and then do that again, and then I'll save the torpedo bomber as a follow-up. If, however, you are being pressured, and there's an enemy fighter, and you can't guarantee a hit on this ship, so he's got like an AA cruiser kind of defensive fire, or he's got like this fighter incoming, then it might actually be worth sacrificing. I want me to pull back a little bit more because AA is clipping me. It might be worth attacking with everything because you're not going to get the same opportunity. Oh, nice torps by the Königsberg. Excellent. Alright, now we're just going to be looking for carriers. So I'm going to use the Königsberg as a friendly AA rallying base, something to fly my planes, so if he does engage me with his planes, I'll have friendly AA to help. And we're just looking for the CVs. I'm guessing maybe somewhere on the top right here. try and send my fighter over to deal with their bombers on our Nuremberg. Okay, so you dodge the strafe there. I'm trying to get over here and help my guy. But these are the... hope don't hit me for strafing, bro. I'm sorry. If I could tell him, I tell him to exit strafe. Okay. Yes, we did friendly TK planes, but it was worth it. He was losing the engagement, so we helped. Right, now the way to carrier snipe here is we need to bleed him. Okay, so we want to make sure the thing is, if he damage control parties and we don't have the second wave ready, then it's pointless. However, did we win that fighter duel? Nearly. So as soon as you win that fighter duel, I'm going to tell the fighters to come back to protect, in case he launches fresh fighters. And then, as soon as the follow-up wave, which looks like it's getting here, so what we're going to do is we're going to go and attack. We want to get 2 sources of dot damage, because we can't alpha strike him with our 4 bombers, but we can kill him with flooding and fires. So we're going to basically approach and aim to get a couple of fires and some floods. And if he damage control parties, which he just did, I guess he really wants to take off. So now we didn't get a fire, but can we get flooding? Nope. Alright, we'll just follow him up. Because the thing is, he's damage control, there's no reason to hold back. And anyway, we was about to go down as well. So, to conclude, we got a reasonable number of plane kills at 18. We have over 100,000 damage, double CV carrier game. Hello. Enemy fighters coming up. Let's see if we can't click him. He's turning. I don't want to fly around because of the AA, so this is one of those few instances where I will take him side on and I'll try and get it bang in the middle because I'm just looking for that fire and he'll burn out. There you go. Done. By flying around, I just increased the odds of faffing around and losing planes to AA, so I just wanted to kind of get that hit in. And there we go. Good game. We got some good damage, we got a good number of connections, we helped our team, we killed the destroyer from the beginning, we were very careful with our fighter play, and as a result, we're top on the team and we do quite well. Anyway. I hope you've learned something. If you have any questions about how to play the Ryujo or whatnot, or you have you want to know more or something, ooh, a special coupon discount on bundles in the premium shop. Well, I will check that out. Anyway, as I was saying, you got questions, put it in the comments down below. You want to know anything more about the Ryujo that I might not have covered, you think I've missed something, or maybe you disagree with what I've said, you're more than welcome to, ask away and I'll respond to you in kind. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.